A lot has changed about Alabama since Nick Saban has retired and he's been replaced by Kalen DeBoer. But one thing that has remained the same about Alabama, despite Nick Saban being gone, is them still owning Kirby Smart and the Dogs. Alabama beats Georgia 24-21. They give Georgia their first home loss in 6 years. That's nearly half a decade without losing in Athens. That's a huge accomplishment. If you wrote off Alabama after their week 1 upset loss against Florida State, don't try to hop back on the bandwagon. No, you picked your side, so stay on that side. You said that Alabama was done. You tried to define the team that Alabama was going to be this season based off what they did in their first game of the regular season. In week 1, you never get the full version of any team. Some teams that are really good, sometimes they start out a little bit flat. When you're practicing and hitting nobody but yourself for 6-7 months, you're going to have some kinks to work out. And Alabama losing to Florida State, they obviously had some flaws that had to be addressed, and they fixed them. Kalen DeBoer, I still stand by this. A lot of you guys have been asking me this since Alabama lost to Florida State. Do I still believe that Kalen DeBoer was the right replacement for Nick Saban? Yes, I do. I feel there was no better replacement for Nick Saban than Kalen DeBoer. Because Kalen DeBoer, if your life was on the line and you had to pick any head coach to win a big game to keep you alive, you would choose Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer, over the last 3 years, has swept 3 of the consensus top 5 head coaches in the sport. Dan Lanning, Steve Sarkisian, and now Kirby Smart. Yeah, his teams may play down the competition, but there's no head coach that has a team ready in prime time and big must-win games against the best of the best than Kalen DeBoer. Alabama, for the first time this season, they played a complete game. Their offense was completely scorching hot in the first half, 24 points. Ty Simpson was unconscious. He looks like Mac Jones 2.0. The accuracy, the anticipation that he throws with, he also has a slightly better arm than Mac Jones, and he's a way better athlete than him. And I never doubted once how good Ty Simpson was going to be. Everybody's shocked about how good he's looked these last couple of weeks. Not me. Kirby Smart, before this game, during his weekly press conference when he was previewing this matchup, he said that Ty Simpson was the hottest quarterback in college football. And that was thought to be coach speak. He's just propping up the opponent to make them feel good. No, Kirby Smart just doesn't praise anybody just for the sake of praising them for coach speak. If Kirby Smart says that you're a good quarterback and you're playing good football, those things are true. And it was evident tonight because Ty Simpson, with the receivers that he's throwing to, it's kind of impossible for him not to be a finalist for the Heisman Trophy. You got Isaiah Horton, transferred from Miami. He was balling out. He was doing this thing. We know about Ryan Williams. Jeremy Bernard is the guy who oftentimes gets overlooked because he's quiet, doesn't really have the big name recognition of Ryan Williams, but he's the best receiver on Alabama's team. I feel he's better than Ryan Williams. He's more complete. He doesn't drop as many passes as Ryan Williams. He's a great route runner. He's good after the catch. He's going to be a first-round receiver next year. He has a lot of similarities in his game to Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper, like Isaiah Horton, or not Isaiah Horton, but Jeremy Bernard, he was quiet. But he was a guy who, when he was on the field, his name was loud because he was constantly making plays. And every time I watch Alabama, Jeremy Bernard seems to be the go-to guy. Ryan Williams is the big play receiver that they look for the explosives. But Jeremy Bernard is the guy who moves the chains. He's the security blanket for Ty Simpson. And Alabama, in the second half, their defense said, hey, offense, y'all can take a back seat. We're going to win this game. and they only held Georgia to 7 points. Georgia offensively, they couldn't really get anything going. You know, they would have moments during the game when they would have a few plays. The ground game would look really dominant. But when Georgia's offense really needed those gotta have it plays, like that 4th and 1 in the fourth quarter in the red zone, they were unable to get them. And when Alabama got that stop, that's the moment when the game I felt was decided. Because at that point, you knew that Alabama's offense probably wasn't going to be able to do anything. Alabama's defense was going to be the unit to call game, and they did that. Kane Womack, he's had his fair share of criticisms from the Alabama faithful, and most of those criticisms are warranted with how Alabama's defense has struggled against dual threat quarterbacks. But against Gunnar Stockton, Alabama's defense played as good as what they've had under Kane Womack against a dual threat quarterback. I mean, Gunnar Stockton, he made a few plays, but he wasn't as good as what he was against Tennessee a few weeks ago. When it comes to Georgia falling to Alabama at home, I don't really think there's any big overreactions that should be made about it, because Georgia lost to Alabama because Alabama just was the better team. They just made more plays late down the stretch. Georgia still is a good team. They had moments during this game when they could have took control, like the back-to-back drops that they had late in the third quarter. You had one guy who dropped a wide-open touchdown, just an absolute dot that Gunnar Stockton delivered, and he was unable to get the package to the doorstep. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a rematch of this game in the SEC championship like we've seen so many times before. This is the class of the South. When you think SEC football, you think both of these programs. Both of these programs are the gold standard of college football. Alabama, Georgia is one of the most watched games every single year because these two programs are the model for what every program in college football hopes to be. Every program wants to try to replicate what Georgia and Alabama have done and what they are. And even though Nick Saban is gone, what still remains the same is that Alabama still owns Kirby Smart and Georgia, and they win 24-21.